Also, more than 517 billion has been released to the 36 states to expand livelihood support to their citizens, while 600,000 nano businesses have benefited from our nano grants. An additional 400,000 more nano businesses are expected to benefit. Furthermore, 75,000 beneficiaries have processed to receive our 1 million micro and small business single-digit interest loans starting this month. We have also built 10 MSME hubs within the past year, created 240,000 jobs through them, and 5 more hubs are in progress, which will be ready by October this year. Payment of 1 billion each also have been made to large manufacturers under our single-digit loan to boost manufacturing output and stimulate growth. I signed the national minimum wage into law last week.
All right, you're still watching the conversation on Lagos television. Once again, we'll be looking at the presidential broadcast of yesterday, vis-a-vis good governance. And of course, Mr. President did read certain things yesterday about the governors, how much they've received from the federal government as form of support, but yet people are complaining in different parts of the country that they are not feeling the impact of these governors. Most of us are focusing our attention on the federal government, forgetting that the federal government can only do little. Much more is being expected from the state governors, yet they are not doing anything to, of course, improve the quality of living of their people, some of them to be precise. Joining us this morning to look at governors and the demand for good governance is Segun Sokpiton. Segun Sokpiton is a good governance advocate. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, I think the best way to start this morning, I'm sure you listened to Mr. President yesterday, and from your own assessment, did Mr. President hit the nail on the head? And of course, the speech, looking at it paragraph by paragraph, did it address the demands of those protesters in any way?
Well, I mean, I guess the first thing that we should do is to acknowledge the fact that he spoke, because he could have decided not to. So that's in itself, I won't say should be commended, because I think it's something that one would expect ordinarily, but I think at least it's a good thing that he did respond. People have begun to wonder, where's the president in all of this? The protest had gone on for 4 days. 3 days, and then on the 4th day he finally spoke. So it's a good thing that he did address, the country, on the back of, in the wake of all of the protests. Having said that, and having acknowledged that, I however think that he could have done more. He could have addressed the issues in clearer terms and more directly. I think what he did was just to simply repeat the things that he and his government had been saying over the course of the last 14 months. He did not address the demands of the protesters directly. He referred to them and simply reminded Nigerians of the things that he's doing and the reasons that he's doing them. Reminding us of the long-term gains, where we're headed and why he's doing what he's doing and all of that, which is good. However, the problem, as economists will say, is in the long run, we're all dead. So people are saying they're hungry today. That's primarily what the protest is about, and you could see a lot of symbolic gestures, people going with empty pots, and stuff like that. They're talking about their current situation and saying that your policies have created hardship for us, has made things more difficult for us than where we were before you came. You know, so he didn't quite address those immediate problems that people were, you know, pushing across to him. One of the demands, for example, is saying fuel prices should be restored. Well, one demand said 250, another one said 200, suggesting that maybe some sort of subsidies or more subsidies than we are currently experiencing needs to be restored back.
But Segun,
he didn't
is
speak
it going
to that
make,
at all.
I'm sorry to butt in.
Yeah.
Is it going to make any economic sense? We have seen governments year in, year out telling us that we've been spending so much on fuel subsidy. And here is a man who has taken that bold step. Without pain, there is no gain. And of course, he did say yesterday why he took that decision.
Yeah.
So we're demanding that issue start subsidizing fuel again. Wouldn't that be a tall dream?
Maybe it is, you know, but for me, the point is these demands were made. And they were made by the people that he governs and the people that voted him into office. And I feel that he should have addressed those demands clearly. So what you just said now, he should have said it. He should have said, I heard you. You want me to revert to 200 naira. Sorry, we can't. For this reason, for this reason, for this reason. You know, so you show that you respect the people, you know, rather than more or less be dismissive in your approach and in your language and in your body language to those demands. If you ask my personal opinion, I think that, yes, maybe subsidy should have been removed, but I think it could have been done far better, and I think it could have been done in a way that would not have resulted in the pains that we're all feeling. Look, nobody is excluded except, you know, if you are either extremely wealthy or you are being protected by the resources of the state. You know, so if you're a political office holder and all of that, you are not feeling it. But everybody else is feeling the pinch of this one way or the other. So I think we could have handled this better. And that's why there's so much anger and all of that. And he needs to speak to that anger, you know. The protests are not going to go away. And I think primarily that's because his speech did not address those issues. He did not hit them on the head.
But he emphasized the fact that the federal government is ready for dialogue.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's important. And
would there be any solution without engagement,
absolutely.
without dialogue?
I think invariably, you know, just like protests, even when, let's take the example, make it a bit extreme. When nations go to war, inevitably, all wars will end at the dialogue table.
Sure.
You know, so it's the same for protests. No matter what happens, at the end of the day, there has to be some sort of conversation to bring those matters to a head and to end, you know, those protests. So dialogue, it's good that he said is open. And I think that he should go one step further, which I think he could also have done in the speech, to actually address the channels and the modalities for that dialogue. He could have thrown out a clear and open invitation and given direct instructions to the concerned government parties to create the structure for the dialogue to happen. You know, if he had done that, for example, I think that may also have helped assuage the feelings of anger and all of that. So for me, I think that he could have done more with the opportunity to speak to Nigerians on the prevailing issues of the day. You know, it left me a bit, just feeling a bit, oh, is this all? Because I was one of the people that kept, you know, advocating the president needs to speak.
So you're
Mr.
talking
President, speak.
The line of the likes of Femi Falana, SAN, and Professor Wole Soyinka.
Absolutely. You know, and Professor Wole Soyinka said something about, you know, breads for bullets. You know, and that's also important. I think the president also did not acknowledge. He did commiserate with people whose lives had been lost and all that, but how did those things happen? You know, it was the state machinery that created the death, even if you say it was provoked. But, you know, I think the president could have gone a bit further to perhaps caution state actors on how they handle the protest to ensure that non-lethal means of engagement are strictly followed, rather than throwing live bullets at people that are protesting,
okay,
even if they are going around looting and breaking the law. You know, you don't do extrajudicial executions because somebody is breaking the law. Arrest them and take them to court.
All right, we'll be looking at the presidential speech now, paragraph by paragraph, but I'm particularly interested in paragraph 23, where the president said more than 570 billion has been released to 36 state governors to expand livelihood support to their citizens, while 600,000 nano businesses have benefited from our nano grants. An additional 400,000 more are expected to benefit. 570 billion are taken by governors, and yet some of their citizens are complaining that they can barely feel the impact of these governors. All eyes are on Mr. President, and he has done some things, giving money to these state governors to also impact their people.
Yeah. The sad part of the way our government is structured, the way our society, in fact, is structured, and I would imagine that this is a result of our historical antecedents with military rule and the unitary form of government that we had foisted upon us by the military. The unfortunate part of all of that and the unfortunate outcome of that is that attention would always be focused on the president. We seem to think that everything starts and stops, at the federal level, which is not true. The reality of the matter is that the federal government is responsible for policy pronouncements and execution from a federal, from the Commonwealth perspective. But when it comes to drilling down to how these policies will impact us as individuals, the actions of state governments and local governments are very critical. But Nigerians really, really don't. We haven't learned that yet. We haven't learned the habit, developed the habit of looking at the subnational level. We're well focused on the presidency. Maybe with some good reason, but I think we need to do better. So the president trying to tell us what is done to the state with the state governments is a good thing. And I think that we need to take a cue from that and actually be more, be as vicious, if you like, with our criticism. The way we criticize at the federal level, we need to take that same level of vitriol, anger, attention, focus to the state level, and even drill it down to the local government level. Even if you argue that the local government up until now, up until recently, are only appendages of the state governors, but at least with the new autonomy that they are going to be enjoying, in the coming months and years, I think we also need to give them a lot of attention. So the president talking about the 570 billion is one thing, and I think, in my opinion, maybe it's not enough. But
what have they done with it?
Yes, in fact, aside from what they've done with the 570 billion, I think questions need to be asked. With what they've done with the about 6 trillion extra that they've received in the last 12 months as a result of subsidy removal. Excuse me. In the last 6 months, I've done an analysis of FAC allocations. And you would find that almost to the kobo, every dime that we've saved from subsidy removal, on the one hand, and from the devaluation of the naira and the increased revenues that has meant for Nigeria as a nation, has been split down to the state level. So the state governments across the country today have received an additional 5 trillion naira, 6 trillion if you add certain line items, in the revenue allocation formula. In the last 12 months, where is that money? So 6 trillion makes 570 billion look almost inconsequential. So I think in addition to asking questions about what has been done with the 570 billion that the president says he's provided as a direct consequence of his policies, the increased revenues that the government, the states have received must be interrogated. Okay. Where is the money, And look, let's not deceive ourselves. It's been 14 months since this administration, since this new set of government officials, the president and the governors, came into office. 14 months is a long time.
Yeah.
And in 14 months, we should actually have begun to see certain things being done, with the additional revenues that we're seeing, that they're receiving. So, for example, the president was able, to say, look, we've started the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road. We're working on the Lagos-Sokoto, Badagry-Sokoto, axis as well. That's it's a fact. And we all saw the news when those things were happening. In fact, the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road was very controversial because of the initial right-of-way, issues and all of that. So how many of the state governors can say the same? Can tell us that, look, in the last 14 months, this is what we've done.
Okay, before we answer that question,
do this,
here with me is the July 2024 FARC allocation, and the federal government shared 1.354 trillion naira in June, and among the federal government, 36 states and 774 local governments. And we have the breakdown here. Abia got 9.3 billion, Adamawa 8.7 billion, Akwa Ibom 30.58 billion, Anambra 11.7 billion, Bauchi 7.5 billion, Bayelsa 25.3 billion, Benue. The list is endless, but it was a breakdown of what they got in the month of July.
For 1 month
and when you look at the quality of development in these states, we cannot match it with these figures.
And the tragedy of all of this is, if you actually have this conversation with the average state governor in Nigeria, they will point you to some bridge that they're building, and they will say, look at what we've done, and all of that. And I think that it's important that the conversation is taken beyond you pointing to bridges and flyovers that you've built, to what impact these monies are having on the lives of the citizens in a very granular matter, in a very granular manner. How has it helped improve the quality of life of the people? How has it improved, provision of health care, improved access to education, improved access to the basic amenities of even potable water? It's terrible, the fact that across the country today, most people drink either water from boreholes that they dug by themselves or water from streams. Borehole is actually for people that are affluent. Most people just either fetch water from wells that are provided by the community, or they just go to streams. Something as mundane as that has not been taken care of at the state level. So these questions must be asked. Accountability structures need to be put in place to ensure that governors are accountable to the people and answerable to the people, and can provide explanations as to where all of these monies have gone on a month-to-month basis. Okay. Somebody suggested, for example, that the same way that the FARC, the RAM-FARC publishes the FARC allocations on a monthly basis, the Ministry of Finance or the Ministry of Budget publishes these figures on a monthly basis. Yeah. We should have some mechanism where, on a monthly basis, state governments publish the use of these funds, showing us exactly where these funds have gone and what they've been allocated to do. Until we begin to see this, I think that the opacity that we have at the state level will continue to deny us of development.
Okay.
Let's not forget, that when we talk about the federation, there's the federal government, which is a government on its own, and then you've got 36 additional governments, which are the state governments. And it's when you put all of that together in an aggregate that you actually have the total picture of what's happening in Nigeria from a budgetary point of view and allocation of resources point of view. So we are missing a half of our entire economic development, accountability structures, by looking at the federal government alone. I think it's high time we begin to have that conversation about the other half. Because until we do that, we're only dealing with half of the whole, and we will not make progress.
All right. Paragraph 25 now, I'm quoting Mr. President here. Payment of 1 billion naira each are also being made to large manufacturers under our single-digit loans to boost manufacturing output and stimulate growth. And alongside that, the federal government equally suspended duties on rice, millet, maize, and of course pharmaceutical products. So are these steps not making sense to these protesters? And of course, letting them know that they cannot really feel the impact immediately. It's going to take a while.
Sadly, in my opinion, it's not enough. It's just not enough. So, for example, the duty waivers.
On rice. It will bring that
rice, and yes, it should. It should, but it hasn't happened. There's a yes. Imagine that I saw on the news this morning that the customs, I think it's the Controller General of Customs or someone saying that tariff window is expiring in November. You know, and here we are, we're already in August. So September, October, November, the window is gone. So what has happened, you know? I mean, the price of rice, the last I checked, it appears to have come down slightly. I asked in the market about 2 weeks ago, it was 82,000 naira for a bag of 50 kilograms of rice, yes. And I heard somewhere yesterday that it's about 76,000 now. Still atrociously high, but maybe that is the impact of the duty waiver. Because I actually did say that duty waiver, and that's why I say it's not enough, duty waivers would only take care of the component of the cost that is accounted for by duties. And typically that's between 5 to 10%. So it will not reduce, you know, the cost of these items significantly enough for people to feel the impact in their pockets and in their, in their kitchens. So, and again, the question of what happens after the 6-month window, the 150-day window, is a big question. Where do we, so are prices just going to go back up? And then how does that help us? So I think we need more measures that are more lasting in the short term. There has to be something from the federal government down to the state governments that would address the short-term pain that people are feeling. It has to be, it can't be ignored. For example, I always use this example.
Beyond palliative?
Because the palliatives will not do enough. It can't. I've always said that you cannot palliativize yourself out of the impact of subsidy removal. It won't happen. There must be some direct action. And there's something that the Lagos State government has been doing that I thought is a brilliant example of what can be done if it is adopted at the federal level and by other state governments. It will have an immediate impact. The Lagos State government is subsidizing food. That's how, you know, there is a 30% discount on food items in what they call the Sunday market. The scheme has some sort of a name like this, you know. So you go there, you get a 25% discount. There is a cap on the volume of food that you can buy using those discounts. I think they're working hand in hand with some mobile money platform, you know, to deploy this. Imagine if that percentage moved from 30% to 50% discounts, and then you cap what people can get. You know, that is a direct subsidy on food, and people will feel the impact if it's spread across enough places for more people to get it. So imagine if this is extended to all other states across the country, and even, you know, maybe supported with funds from the federal government, you know. So those types of actions are the things that we need to see that would take this pain away in the short term, until we then begin to see the impact of the subsidy removal kick in, you know, on a larger scale.
Okay, the autonomy for local government, which was a landmark judgment by the Supreme Court of Nigeria, would that also improve the quality of governance at the grassroots level? Because those were part of the point highlighted yesterday by Mr. President as some of his achievements.
It's a significant step in the right direction. And we have to make sure we leverage on that. And it's important that this is said. It's only one of the things that needs to happen for us to actually see an increase in the quality of governance at the local level. Let's not forget, like you said, the protest is end bad governance in Nigeria. And governance, you know, everybody is thinking about the federal government almost subconsciously when we say end bad governance. But the truth is that governance is delivered at all levels, across 3 tiers. 3 tiers and 3 levels. So you've got 3 arms and 3 tiers of government. You've got the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. And then you've got the 3 tiers, the federal, the state, and the local. This autonomy that has been granted to the local as a tier of government, we will not enjoy the fruits if we do not also address the issue of the elections into local governments.
So you're thinking the elections into local government should be conducted by INEC against state independent elections?
I actually don't agree with that idea, because I think we're moving in the wrong direction if we do that. We're saying we need devolution of powers and we need to decentralize more.
But these governors will have control over the state independent.
So that's what we need to address. So what we need to address is a situation where the state governors do not control the State Independent Electoral Commission. So that all we need to do is think, what mechanisms can we put in place? It should be independent. So it shouldn't be controlled by anybody. So what we should have is a situation where maybe you say, civil society, combined with maybe journalist unions and some other unions and all of that to come together to get involved in the process of appointing the administrative leadership of these independent commissions. One. So the administrative structure needs to be weaned off the state governors. Two, the funding needs to be weaned off the state governors. If you remove the funding and you remove the appointment of the headship of those agencies, then they can run by themselves. And then when you have an election, in local government election in a state, you are sure that the people that will emerge were voted in by the citizens. And those people will not feel beholden to the state governor. So if you don't address that and you give the local government chairman autonomy, they will simply carry the autonomy and put it in the hand of the state governors. That's what is going to happen.
Okay.
And former governors have also said this. They know how it works, and they said, look, this is not enough. I put this guy there. He is going to answer to me, and that will be the end of the story. So we need to go a step further.
Is it not laughable to you that people have commended the Supreme Court judgment here and there, and in a state like Oyo State yesterday, the 34 or 33 local government chairman of the state, they pulled out of Halgon, saying that they will go with what their governor wants. They are not interested in the autonomy of their local government.
Absolutely, exactly the point. Because, the guys are smart. I won't blame them. It's ridiculous. For us as good governance advocates, you look at that and your heart bleeds. But the average human being will always go with what will favor him personally, the what's in it for me syndrome. So the guy knows that he is there in that position because his governor put him there. Whether there was an election or not is completely, it's right now the local government elections are a charade. So why should they go against their own interest by fighting the person that put them there, who in truth can remove them? Even though, in spite of that Supreme Court ruling, if a state governor really wants to frustrate the local government chairman, there's a way that he's going to do it. So I think those guys were they were protecting themselves, personal interest and all of that. So which still boils down to the fact that until we address how those guys are selected, in quotes, we will not have this autonomy. And this, this thing you just spoke about is a fantastic example, that makes the point that I've been trying to make. Okay,
let's go to the protesters now. Some are saying that they're resuming today and continue with the protest, and of course, okay, as we speak, information reaching me now is saying that they have resumed in Ojota with the protest. What do you think, or what kind of strategy do you think they should begin to adopt now in such a way that they would not lose sight of their demands and, of course, achieve something meaningful with this protest as against what happened during that event SARS? Yeah,
one of the dangers of the protest process is it's difficult to say when you have actually achieved the objective. What's the objective? Is the objective to get government to make a policy pronouncement, or is the objective to shine attention to the issues? If your objective is to force government to make a policy pronouncement, then you stay out and continue to protest until that happens, or until, maybe it just withers off. In Kenya, the objective was to get government to reverse a policy, and it got so bad that government did not have a choice. And I always say we don't want to see that happen here. We don't want to see anarchy and chaos. It shouldn't happen before governments respond. So I think that the protesters might need to reevaluate their strategy. If, for example, I would suggest, look, I just came from my office to your studio, and the roads are busy. People are going about their businesses. What that suggests is that, yes, you are protesting and the media will give you some sort of airtime so that people will know that you are there, but you are not really impacting activities, and therefore you will be ignored. So if I was going to advise them, and this is perhaps something that they should have thought about at the beginning, going to Freedom Park and all of that is good, and it's good for people to see that you're protesting, but protests by nature needs to be disruptive, not violent, but disruptive for them to achieve objectives. So why can't they go and have a sit-out somewhere where they will disrupt somebody important without violence? So what people do in other parts of the world, for example, is you would say the Occupy movement, go sit in front of the House of Assembly, go to the National Assembly and picket them. And, you know, yeah, they want to pass, let them go in, but you are there. It's
you're visible enough for them.
You are so visible that they can't ignore you, and you are there, and you don't leave. First day, second day, third day, you know. Why can't they they can't get to Aso Rock, sure, but they can get to a place within enough distance where they're there such that everybody that is going in and coming out is seeing them as they're going and coming out, and they are loud.
Would there be any need for that? Mr. President did say yesterday that I've heard you loud and clear.
Yes, I mean, he said so, but, you know, he said he had heard them loud and clear, but then he didn't speak directly to their demands. So he spoke indirectly. He actually spoke to all of it. Actually, if you really want to be, you know, if you want to look at the speech, he spoke to all the demands, but it was indirect. It was simply recounting the policies of his government that is addressing those demands already anyway, which is different from saying point 1, point 2, point 3. I've heard this, this is what we're doing, or this is what we're not doing, you know. So, yeah, should they continue protesting? I think, you know, the protest should continue for as long as anybody feels they have grievances to express. It's their right, a fundamental right protected by the Constitution.
If they're still there protesting, when and how would they be engaged for dialogue?
The leaders have to come out, and that's why I spoke about the channels. Right now, what should be happening? This is now a second week. Government needs to reach out to them. They're there. They are known. The police, the DSS has said, we know the leaders of these protests. In fact, you and I know one or two very prominent Nigerians who are actually the ones, you know, galvanizing and mobilizing, you know, these people. Why can't these guys be called, invited publicly? Why can't government send out a public invitation and say, look, let's meet the same way they met with Labour, for example? That was very public. Let's sit down with, you know, the presumed leaders of these groups across the countries, federal government doing its own, the state governments doing their own, you know, and have these conversations. I think if we do that, then maybe we can avert. The danger that I see with the protest continuing is where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. And the longer that you stay out there without being clear as to why you are there and what's going to happen next, it might spiral out of control. It's very similar to the NSAS thing. After the first 3 or 4 days, I kept saying to some of the organizers who I know, you've achieved the objective. President Buhari at that time gave a speech where he said they are going to scrap SARS. Some of the state governors also said some things about what they were going to do to address the other demands, but they stayed on the streets until things degenerated. So it was almost as if victory had been achieved at a point, but it wasn't recognized, and then degeneration followed. So I'm a bit worried that this protest might go the same way, and that's why I'm saying I think the organizers need to perhaps re-strategize on the one hand, but on the other hand, I think government needs to invite them and open the channels. The channels of communication need to be opened publicly so that everybody can see that the government has done its part, and everybody can see that the protesters have either rejected that channel or they've accepted it. Until we do that, I think it's a bit dangerous to just allow this thing to continue to fester. All
right, Segun, quickly, in 1 minute before we allow you go, what are the lessons herein for an average Nigerian that is eligible to vote in 2027? Although it's still far, what are the lessons therein?
Well, for me, I think the biggest lesson is electoral choices have direct consequences on our lives. Vote buying, you know, politicians cannot buy votes if somebody doesn't sell it. So I think the people that are out there protesting today, a lot of them, listening to the utterances, you see that they may actually have been regretting their electoral choices and actions. For me, I think this is the biggest lesson. The elections are coming in 2027. Think, because whatever you do at that time will affect you directly. And this is just the way society, you know, is structured, especially democratic societies. If it was a military regime, now you say it doesn't matter. But in a democracy, your electoral choices have consequences on you, on your pocket, on your family, and on your children. So we should be careful how we conduct ourselves going into 2027 and make sure that we make the right decisions. Whatever those right decisions might be to your conscience, it's up to you and in your hands.
All right, so that's a very good point to end this conversation this morning with Segun Showunmi. Segun Showunmi is a good governance advocate and is hereby calling on the protesters
Shokwiton.
Shegun Shokwiton, I beg your pardon.
Show me is my friend.
And is thereby calling on the protesters to reason along with government, of course, open channels of communication so that their aims and objectives will be achieved at the end of the day. Once again, we thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
We'll take a very quick break on the conversation right now. When we come back, the ladies of Lagos will be taking over. Stay with us.